All right, so this is round two of the interview with Max, and he's going to talk a bit more about his training experience under the infamous butcher Ivan Abadjiev. So, what was it like, Max?
Uh, it was hard. It was Abadjiev was a black hole for training. The more you put in, the more he'd give you, which is, that's his system. That's what he did. Uh, yeah, it was a difficult period of time.
How long did you train with him?
Uh, Several months. I don't know exactly the exact time. It was a few years ago. Maybe 5 months, 6 months.
5 months. And
Yeah.
who did you train with under him? Who are
Under
your teammates?
I trained with Dave Spitz. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, he was there. No. Nikolai Hristov,
Yeah,
Martin
Dave Spitz is the owner of California Strength.
Yes, he's
Yeah,
the mastermind. Um,
the Doctor Evil of the operation.
yeah. Martin Pashov, Nikolai Hristov, Donnie showed up. Donnie Schenkel showed up quite a bit later. Um, James Moser was there for a few weeks. And then Alex Krejciv's son trained there sporadically.
Yeah.
Phenomenal athlete.
And a lot of people talk about Abadjiev and his training system, and how, in your opinion, would the reality be different to the myths? Or would there be differences?
Abadjiev was, on a personal level, Abadjiev was pretty fun. He was a pretty good sense of humor. Kind of a jokester. He was not like he was the opposite of the typical, you know, high school football coach. It was not like a cheerleader. It was not a, uh, like yelling at you, barking at you kind of guy.
Yeah.
He was much more of a sit there and just look at you in disgust because you're so weak. Um, one time I asked him as a 94 kilo lifter what I'd have to do to not be a piece of shit, or I guess we can say that, not be garbage. And he told me 245 clean and jerk, and I said, with no doping control though, right? And he said, I don't care if you eat shit. So he had a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And again, as a coach, and his training system, again, there's the idea that he went to Max 3 times a day in both the classical
Yeah.
lifts and the front squat, and it was relentless. Was that what it was like in reality, or?
Yeah. The relentless part is kind of deceiving to a lot of people. I think you could do that kind of workout 2 or 3 weeks and be fine, 5 weeks and be fine, but you have to do it so far, so many weeks in a row, 52 weeks a year, 5 years in a row, um, and that's what the difficult part is. I
Yeah.
mean, you fall apart. Your results fall apart. You break down, and that was to be expected. You knew that was going to happen. That's what everyone told you, and you fight through that, and you get better at the end.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people miss what's going on there. That's a conversation for another time, but basically, yeah, you fall apart, and you have to keep coming in. I think I front squatted like 230 the first day I got there, or sometime in the first week. And after about 6 weeks, I was front squatting 160, so I was missing 170.
Yeah.
And it came back around after that. Made PRs, and
Yeah.
that's just the way it is. That's how you train. That's
Yeah.
what
How
training
long
is
did it take for you to start getting PRs in that system?
about. They come different periods of time. It's a cyclical thing. You go down, then you go back up, and you go down again, and you go back up. Probably, 6-8 weeks, you fall apart. Then you come back up. My results were never gigantic compared to some guys, but
Yeah.
you break down, you fall apart. You feel like you want to commit suicide, and if you stick with it and keep pushing and pushing and pushing, eventually you start feeling like shit, and you squat X amount, or you clean and jerk X amount, and then one day you're clean and jerking a PR, and you felt like you couldn't walk down the steps that morning.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
You have a pretty long training history, Max, and the Bulgarian system and the Steve Goff system that you were describing wouldn't have much room for assistance lifts, or actually wouldn't have any room for assistance lifts. In your opinion, Are assistant lifts
Necessary?
necessary?
That's a tough question. I mean, not really. You know, it's funny. I mean, if you look at squats, they're basically an assistance exercise.
Yeah.
And if you look at, you know, when you work out with Abadjiev, you have maybe 50 workouts, 50 exercises a week that you do. 30 of those might be squats.
Yeah.
So in essence, you could say that most of the system is assistance exercises, right? As for like typical things like, you know, snatch, push, press behind the neck with a, you know, kettlebell between your legs or whatever, that shit, no, we never did any of that, you know. Abadjiev had me do some overhead squats after I jerked. I did pulls with Abadjiev occasionally when I was hurt. You know, if I hurt my hand or something,
Yeah.
I would do pulls. That stuff all has a place when it's necessary.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff was basically some way of like a placeholder. You know, while you're training,
Yeah.
you have to keep training. You have to keep pushing. You can't let the training process fall apart because you're hurt. So you find something you can do, you know, and you just keep going down the line of what's less and less productive. You know, if all you can do is squat, and then that's all you do, you squat, you know.
Yeah.
I don't remember what I hurt my wrist once or something, and I squatted, you know, 8 times a day, and that's what you did. And you just keep trying to do more and more and more as you go.
Did your squats go up when you were doing that amount of squatting volume?
Yeah, I don't remember what I was squatting when I was there. I may have squatted like 260 with him or something like that.
Yeah.
But after, you know, it's like you don't expect an instant return on it. It's just training. You have to keep going. The whole point was to stay in that bubble of
Pain.
training. Yeah, in the bubble of pain. So.
And you were saying in the other part of the interview that Steve Goff's system and Abadjiev's system would be quite similar,
Yeah.
or very similar. Would there be many differences in how that system was implemented, or?
Just time. I had to drive an hour each way to train with Steve.
Yeah.
And we only had a certain amount of time.
Okay.
I worked a couple days a week for my father, so I had the luxury of having time to train with him.
So the only difference was that you were just able to do it full time with
time, and there was always a little bit of like, you're not sure if that's what you're supposed to do. When I was with Steve,
Yeah.
you know, you start to fall apart and you kind of get like concerned, like maybe this isn't right.
Yeah.
With Abadjiev, there was no concern. It was just like, well, he knows what he's doing. So
Yeah.
not that I doubted Steve, but
No, but you were only starting off as a weightlifter at the time,
yeah,
weren't
I
you?
didn't know exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I started with Steve, I think I front squatted 165, and then about 8 weeks later, I think I hit 230.
Okay.
So, or maybe 12 weeks. I don't know.
And do you have any interesting stories about any of the old school Bulgarian lifters that Abadjiev told you?
Yeah, that was one of my favorite things to do, was to talk to Abadjiev about his old guys and what they lifted. I remember asking about Blagoev. He said he snatched 202 in training.
Weighing 90.
Yeah, probably a little
92
over 90,
kilos.
92,
Yeah.
95, maybe something like that. Clean and jerk 232, but he said he could clean probably 250. And he said Alexander Verbanov had cleaned 230 kilos.
Weighing.
Missed the jerk, weighing probably 77, maybe 78.
And what about Naeem Sulamanoglu?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have probably heard those numbers. He said that 1 week before his 190 clean and jerk in Seoul, he did 197 and a half, so a little overweight.
That's insane.
When you hear those numbers, it's kind of like, yeah, like I said the other day, it's like just eye-opening. You don't have the option of saying, you know, well this or well that. You know, he did this or he did that on this or on that. And because those numbers are like, the numbers they lift in competition are one thing, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then you find out in training they're doing 15, 20 kilos more than that, which is even more amazing. You know, it's pretty humbling to do that, to see that kind of thing, to hear about that.
Okay. Just for the last piece, the number one tip for when you're on the platform, what would it be?
Make your lifts. Yeah, I mean, you gotta be able to put together what you have to put together.
Yeah.
The last clean and jerk, that's it. Save it for that if you have to.
All right. Thank you, Max.
All right.